Hey Violas, we're working on this shifting etude for our chamber audition. And this shifting etude, you're really looking to shift to third position on the D string and A string. Now what you need to know is the key signature and the finger pattern. And so think about, for every note in this piece, do you know where that note belongs? Do you know what the finger pattern is? Both in first and for third position. So we're going to cover that first. On the G string, in G major, we've got one sharp, just F sharp, and we have a 2-3 finger pattern. Same thing on the D string. A string, we have a 1-2 finger pattern, so that half step shifts to 1-2. Now moving on to third position, it's a little bit different. We don't go to third position on the G string in this little exercise here, but it would be a whole step position because you would have C, D, E, and F sharp, so that would be a whole step open position. But we do go to third position on the D string and the A string a lot. And the good news is it's just one finger pattern for both of those. It's a 3-4 finger pattern in third position. So there's 3 finger patterns in this piece. First position, D string and G string, you have the 2-3 finger pattern. First position, you have 1-2 finger pattern. Shifting on the D string and A string, you have the 3-4 finger pattern. Really make sure that you get those in tune. What I recommend doing is actually taking that outside of the context of this piece to just practice the notes in that scale. Do a little extended scale to get the notes. Now, an extended scale allows you to play all of the notes in a key without worrying about starting on the right pitch or the wrong pitch. In this case, we don't have to go to the C string at all, but I'm still going to start on the C string to demonstrate what an extended scale would be. So an extended scale takes all the notes in G major, so every note but F sharp instead of F natural, and you play that open string through 4th finger. So on the C string, you would have open C, D, E, F sharp, G, and that would be a 3-4 finger pattern. I'm going to walk through those notes right now, including the other strings. So C string, open C, first finger D, E, high 3 F sharp, make sure it's high enough, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, low 2 C natural, D, and E. So I take all of the notes in the key of G major and I just play a scale starting on open C going all the way up. You have to remember that key signature. In this case, easy, G major, just 1 sharp. If I was playing a D major extended position, I couldn't start on C natural, the open C natural string. I'd have to put a low 1 down because that note's C sharp, because D major has F sharp and C sharp. We kind of luck out in this piece with only having 1 sharp, so good news for us. Now I'm going to do that same exercise, but put it into third position. That way you're thinking about what are my note options in third position, not just in first position. Because this piece has you shifting up a lot to third position for just a couple notes. And it's actually really useful to do that while you're playing viola in orchestra, because sometimes you want to play a 4th finger D, but it's easier as a 2nd finger D if you can do that shift. All right, so here's third position. And I'm going to start on the C string, because this happens in orchestra. You need to play these low notes, but you can play them in third position on the C string. So the first note would actually be F sharp, and you can see that that is going to be a high 1 and a normal 2 in this third position. So I have F sharp and G, A, B, now G string I have C natural, D, E, F sharp, first finger on the D string, G, A, B, C, first finger on the A string, D, E, F sharp, and G. So what we did was we practiced extended scales in both first and third position to make sure we know what the finger pattern is on each of those strings in that position. So the first thing I'm going to look at in this piece is looking at those shifts. And now in this piece, all of the shifts are in parentheses. So each time you're in parentheses, you are in third position. Now that means the note right before the parentheses is going to be in first position. You shift up on that note, starting on that shifting note, to the destination note. And the destination note is that first note that's in third position. So let's take a look at the first shift. You have second finger F sharp to first finger G. As you're doing these shifts, you must remember the two principles that I like to focus on for shifting. First of all, your thumb has to stay with your hand. Okay, don't leave that thumb behind, but bring it with your hand. This is a good exercise to practice doing that. Put the fingers on the string, get the arm motion up, and watch as your thumb continues with your hand. Now, the second thing you've got to remember is that there's always a note, always a finger on the string. You're always shifting with a finger. And we're actually, by doing this 2-to-1 shift, we're actually doing a first finger shift. Why? Because first finger is the destination finger. I need to end up on a G. So instead of practicing 2-to-1 right now, let's just practice 1-to-1. So first finger E, sliding up to G, and back. In essence, what we're doing with this shift is we're leaving that first finger down, and we're sliding up with second finger and then lifting to reveal that first finger that was down the whole time. So before we add that second finger, let's just go through the steps of shifting. So we just practice sliding with the finger down. Now what you're going to want to do is lift that finger ever so slightly so it's not pressing down on the string all the way. And that's going to sound like this. You've got first finger down, and you lift it up a little bit and get this ghost note. I'm also lifting my bow a little bit. Now you want to lift during the slide. So first note, this is the shifting finger. Slide. You get to the destination note, and you press down again. Let's try that a few times, up and down, from E to G. And back. Now eventually you want to put that between the bow changes. So I'm going to play an E, shift up, change bows on the G. G, shift down, change bows on the E. Eventually, it'll just turn into two separate notes, and you won't hear that shift too much. Now in this piece, the first shift again is F sharp to G. So I'm going to leave that first finger down, slide up with my second finger, shift to the note A, and then lift up for G. Eventually you can lift that finger as you do the shift, and that will help you. Now going back down in this piece, it's going to be a first finger G to a second finger F sharp. So the way I actually do that is I take my first finger, I shift back to the note E, and add an F sharp, second finger. So in slow-mo that sounds like this. Again. So reviewing those two shifts, we have F sharp to G. So that second finger, slide up on second finger, lift for G, and then going back, G to F sharp, slide back from G to E, and add F sharp. So the good news is all of the shifts in the first line are that shift 2-to-1. That comes back in the last line. It's a 2-to-1 or a 1-to-2 on the D string. But you actually have that same finger shift on the A string, except you have a low 2. So we have a C natural on the A string to a first finger D and back. First finger D, second finger C natural. So again, I slide up, and I lift second finger to reveal that first finger. I slide back to B, and then add second finger. And eventually that turns into now you should notice that I'm never going back and forth in a jerky way to shift. I always want it to be somewhat smooth with my hand, and that helps me get it in tune, helps me take the time, even though it's a small amount of time, to make sure I hear that pitch as I tune. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna play each measure of the first line or so you can kind of hear what I want you to focus on. You should not be playing this at tempo at first. You should just be playing long tones and practicing that shift. So the first measure, I'm gonna play long tones on each note, make sure that intonation's really solid, and then I'll practice that shift, the last note. Here's the shift. Okay, so you could hear as I slid up, you heard a little bit of the slide. That's okay, especially at this stage, to hear that, as long as you are, as long as you're lifting up on the string a little bit and kind of hiding it. But if you hear it a little bit, it's totally fine, totally fine. Okay, going back down, this is the second measure, and we shift back almost right away. Shifting back. Okay, that first line continues on with the scale going back up, doing again F sharp to G shift. The second line, here it is, this is measure 5 here. Shifting up. Measure 6, shifting down. Again, we shift almost right away. Shift down. The next measure, this is where it gets a little tricky. I know it has 2 notes at once, kind of like the VC thing. You're just gonna play the top part because I want you to practice that shift, and that's why that's in parentheses there. So this is the next measure, measure 7. Here's our shift. Keep going. E, F sharp, and G. You can check that note to make sure it's in tune with your open G string. So a little out of tune, or yeah, we don't want that. Okay, let's talk about tempo in this piece. If you go at 80 beats per minute, that's a pretty good tempo. It needs to be either 60 to 100 beats per minute to the 8th note, which means each click is going to be a note. So let me demonstrate that right now. So this is 60 beats per minute. So that's a good tempo for this. I wouldn't go any slower than that, please, but you can go a little faster. And remember, this is a click per note, so that would be 60 beats per minute for the 8th note. Here's 80 beats per minute for the 8th note. And here's 100 beats per minute. I would not go any faster than this because the point of this is to really get the shifts accurate. that's the shifting etude for viola. We're looking for really accurate shifts. The first thing you should do is just practice the scales, the extended scales in first and third position to make sure you know where the finger pattern is on your instrument. Then start to do some long tones and isolate those shifts, practicing just the shift over and over again, sliding, and then gradually using the lifted finger to kind of create that ghost note sound. After that, then start playing it with the metronome. 60 beats per minute for the eighth note is good enough. If you want to get it to 80 to 100, that's fine too. If you put the quarter note to 60, that would be twice as fast. So that's why I want you to keep it to the eighth note to 60, 80, or 100.